everyone. Today I am here to do a review of Regina St. Clair's newest book, Carni. This just came out on December 1st, and it's a book that I had no idea was coming out. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw Regina make a community post on her YouTube channel about this, and based on the title and the cover, I immediately knew I was going to be buying this. Also, I really liked the other book that I read by Regina St. Clair, Code Red, which came out last year or a couple years ago now. I think it might have been a couple years ago now that came out. I can't remember. But I ended up really loving that one, and I was super excited to dive into another one of her books. This one, apparently, or me guessing anyway, that it's kind of a similar nature, sort of like just a fun horror novel that's a little bit of like a throwback to the Paperback from Hell era. And what we got from this was a little bit different than expected. Again, I didn't really know a lot about this going into it. But yeah, let's talk about this book a little bit. So Carney is about our main character, Dag. As described on the back of the book here, he's a disgraced journalist, and his career is kind of ruined. There's sort of like this scandal with him and his ex-girlfriend. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. I probably should mention that this book opens up with a prologue about this old amusement park back in like the 1920s, and there was a sort of tragic accident at this amusement park. There was a lot of people that died. This one kid who works at the amusement park basically goes on like this killing spree, and yeah, it results in a lot of tragedy. We skip fast forward to the present, and we follow our protagonist Dag, who comes across this young girl named Aurora and falls in love with her. And Aurora is very like passionate about the history of this old carnival on this island that is now run down and abandoned. And she's also like very obsessed with this spirit, this like idea of Carni. Carni in this book is not exactly what you might think. Based on the cover, you might think there's like a killer clown in this book, and there kind of is. But it's a little bit different than that. There's more of like this old legend that has to do with an evil spirit. It's not like your typical slasher type story. I don't want to go into too much detail and give anything away. But yeah, it was a little bit different than what I expected going into this. And yeah, Dag falls in love with this girl. She gets him interested in the history of this carnival. They write a story on it, and it gets printed in the paper. It gains a lot of attention. They raise funds to sort of bring back this carnival back to life and get a lot of people to go to it, resurrect all of these old attractions and rides. And along the way, there's some creepy things that happen. There's a few deaths in this book, and there's some implications that they have to do with this evil spirit known as Carni. And yeah, some creepy things happen along the way. There's a little bit of the mystery of what Aurora is up to. Aurora is a very mysterious character. She's like this very alluring girl that's like kind of trying to seduce Dag, which isn't much of a challenge for her because our main character, Dag, is kind of a womanizer, I guess you might say. He kind of reminds me of a character from like a Richard Lehman novel. That's one thing that it really reminded me of. Maybe not quite as pervy as a character in a Richard Lehman novel, but along those lines. I don't know if Regina St. Clair kind of borrowed some inspiration from some of those like sleazy 80s horror novels at all. This won't for like some of the like more adult content in this book, but this did, I feel like, harken back to that a little bit. And again, it's not like extremely perverted like you would find in a Richard Lehman book, but it's a little bit similar along those lines. Anyway, yeah, Dag kind of falls in love with this girl. She has some ulterior motives for kind of like stringing him along and making him a part of this project. And there's this mystery throughout this story of exactly who is this Carni character that we keep talking about, and what is the cause behind the deaths of these people, and what is the story building to exactly? There's a lot of buildup in this story, but we don't really get any answers until like the last, I don't know, 30 or 40 pages of the book when the climax finally takes place. They have this like grand opening at this new amusement park with it fully restored, and all the attractions taking place. And there, things get really crazy. There's lots of action and bloodshed, and the Carni spirit is revealed in true form. And yeah, it gets pretty wild at the end. So, Carni. This book, I'm probably going to be comparing it to Code Red a little bit because that's the only other book that I've read by Regina. And I will say, first and foremost, I did not enjoy this quite as much as Code Red. This one is a little bit slow throughout. It's not quite as action-packed and just fun and as entertaining as Code Red. And I do remember Code Red being a little bit of a slow burn as well and focusing kind of on character development. But I think where they differ is the Code Red had more likable characters in it. Carni does not. Now, I believe that is fully intended. I could be wrong, but I believe it's intended for the characters in this book to not really be all that likable. Like I said, the main character, Dag, he's kind of sexist and objectifies women, and he's a bit of a selfish character and is really just looking out for himself. He wants to be, maybe he doesn't say it directly, or he kind of wants to be famous. He's trying to get all the attention from like these articles he's writing, and basically just be successful and get all these women. And yeah, he's kind of an asshole. He's not like the worst character ever. You don't exactly hate his guts. I feel like there are some area or parts in the story where you sympathize with him, maybe a little bit. He is, human. He's not the worst character ever, but he's kind of an asshole. And then Aurora, there's really not a lot to her character. I feel like her character is really just there to sort of seduce Dag and then kind of bring him along and help her bring this Carni spirit back to life. I probably shouldn't talk about that too much to spoil anything, but her character, it just felt a little bit shallow to me. There wasn't really anything about her that I liked or cared for. She's just kind of there as like a catalyst to serve to like the mystery and then the climax of the story. And then the other characters in this book just really aren't very memorable either. There's really nobody in here you can really attach to or care or root for, including the spirit of Carni, I guess the villain of the story. Throughout, he's really just kind of in the background. To put it with, I guess, vaguely without spoiling anything, he's just sort of like a background voice in the story. And then he comes into play within like the last, 50 pages. He sort of materializes and becomes more of a physical presence in the story. But there's really nothing about him that you can really latch onto or like all that much, other than he provides all the action at the end, I guess. But yeah, so that is one thing that was a little bit of a disappointment, I guess, with this book. But I still enjoyed reading about these characters, I guess, if that makes sense. Even though none of them were really likable, I was still pretty much engaged throughout this. I was never really bored with it. There were a few scenes here and there that might have been a little bit tedious, just in the sense that there wasn't really anything big happening in the story. I just felt like there was a little bit of too much stuff with like Dag going about his daily routine of life, eating, making food. He has to move back in with his parents earlier in the story because he loses his career because of the scandal. And we just get a little bit too much detail, I think, with him. Just going through the more mundane, tedious aspects of life with nothing really eventful taking place. I feel like some of that maybe could have been trimmed down a little bit. I would have liked to gotten to the climax of the story a little bit quicker. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, I still enjoyed it though. Like I said, I wasn't bored. There's just something about the writing style that's just very easy to read. There's a really nice flow to it. I was curious about the Carni character and exactly what was going to happen. Yeah, it was a little bit not predictable, but there's some implications of what's going to happen later on based on Carni's voice, I guess, throughout the story. I mentioned that he's kind of like a background presence, and we see some of Carni throughout the story and little bits here and there, and it kind of gives it away a little bit what's going to happen towards the end. So I guess in a sense it's a little bit predictable, but not overtly predictable. I don't know. But anyway, This book, I just did not enjoy it quite as much as Code Red overall. Code Red to me was just a much more wildly entertaining book than this one. I gave that one like a 4 out of 5 stars, which is very high for me. As a lot of you guys probably already know that watch my channel, I don't give out high star ratings very often. 5 star ratings are extremely rare for me. Those are reserved for books that are like nearly perfect. So a 4 star rating is pretty high. This one, I think I'm gonna have to settle on like a 3 to 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was still good. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't exactly what I was hoping or expected it to be, and I feel like it just didn't live up to the level of just sheer fun and enjoyment that Code Red was. This is a little bit more of a serious toned book. Code Red, I think, had a lot more humor in it, and while it was very violent, it was just a bit more lighthearted in tone and just cheesy fun. This one is a little bit darker and more serious tone, so I think some people will appreciate that more. Maybe some of you will actually like this book more for that reason. To me, I think Code Red just appealed to me a little bit more. But yeah, anyway, enough with the comparison. Carney was still a good book. It just, I don't know, it just wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. Like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, I think is where I'm at on this one. But I do look forward to reading more books from Regina St. Clair in the future because even though this one wasn't my favorite, I still got some enjoyment out of it. And I really do like her writing style. And yeah, I look forward to what else she comes up with in the future. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for Carni, guys. That's my review for this one. If you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And that's all I have for today, guys. So thanks for watching.